Let's bring in my guest this hour. Watching along with you at home, we have criminal defense attorney Jeffrey Wolf, friend of the program. All right, so let me get your initial thoughts on this case. He admitted to all these really gruesome crimes, killing his wife, killing the dogs, killing the in-laws when they got suspicious. He was sending text messages to them of the pictures of the kids and trying to play the role of his wife to think that she was okay for his family members. I mean, really sick guy. What is your take on this case right now in this penalty phase?
Yeah, I mean, it's a death penalty phase, right? So what the prosecution needs to do is they need to show the jury how heinous the crime was, and what the defense is going to have to do when they get their turn is focus on him and what caused him to do it and what is redeemable about him and what kind of things happened in his upbringing that led him to that point, so that the jury can see that this is not something that just happened in a vacuum and that he didn't just do it because he's evil, but that there's something in his history that led him to do this. And that is really what death penalty sentencings are about. They're about the prosecution showing how evil the act was and the defense showing the lack of evil in the person themselves.
Yeah, and you know, this jury that has to make the recommendation to the judge, whether it's going to be death row or life behind bars without the possibility of parole, you know, because he pled guilty, there was no evidence presented in the innocence guilt phase. So it's like a mini trial, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It basically ends up being the entire crime having to be laid out for the jury because they have no familiarity with it. They've been told, hey, this person pled guilty to these charges, but charges mean nothing to a jury. They don't know anything about the case itself, so the whole thing has to be presented to them, and it becomes really painstaking, and it will take a lot longer than one would expect a sentencing phase of a case to take. And it's not just aggravation and mitigation. All the facts are going to have to be laid out for this jury, and it's going to take a lot longer, like I said, than folks would expect it to take.
Yeah, do you think that he's going to testify on his own behalf to try to save his own skin?
You know, I think that that's going to be a very personal decision for him. I think that it's...
Oh, come on, tell me, what do you think?
I think it's usually a lot less effective in this type of situation than it is in a self-defense type argument. I think that what is most effective in a death penalty case is for psychologists to testify about who he is and how he got to be where he was that led him to commit this type of offense. I don't think this is about, you know, self-defense. This is about psychological issues that could lead somebody to commit such a heinous set of offenses.
Absolutely. All right, Jeffrey Wolf, you're going to be sticking with us all hour long. Coming up, don't go anywhere. The jury sees more gruesome crime scene photos. Those are laid out for them during this penalty phase in the state of Florida for the confessed killer right there on your screen, Shelby Neely. What do you make of this guy's demeanor? Looking around, looking at the jury, looking at all those crime scene photos. He admitted to the crime. He did it. He's like, yeah, I did that. What is this jury thinking? Let's bring in our guest for this hour, criminal defense attorney Jeffrey Wolf in Denver, Colorado. This guy has enough self-preservation to wear a shirt and tie in court. What do you make of his demeanor?
I think he seems extremely casual. I don't think he looks extremely remorseful in any way, shape, or form. But the biggest thing that stood out to me is how different he looks from the pictures. And I think he looks like he spent some time behind bars, and it looks like he may have made some friends in there based on his haircut.
What are you suggesting there? What kind of friends?
Well, self-preservation, if you know what I mean. I think that there is a way to survive in there. And if I was on a jury as a regular everyday person and I know what it takes to survive in custody, I would have a very, very particular thought about his haircut.
Okay, and when we are talking about where we're at right now, I mean, this is the penalty phase. The jury either recommends death row or life behind bars. Can they hear, since this is a penalty phase, it's different than an actual trial, can they hear other prior bad acts which you normally can't bring in? So, for instance, you know, he also murdered his wife, and then he murdered his her parents, and then brother-in-law, and then the dogs. But he also murdered a friend of his, and he was convicted of that. So can this jury hear those bad facts?
So the defense is likely to open the door to some of that stuff, quite frankly, because when you put on character evidence to show peacefulness or to explain some of this behavior, it allows the prosecution to rebut some of that and to show that this is a long-standing violent history that he has. And so it can allow some of that pattern behavior in if you open the door to that. And so you have to be careful.
What are you expecting next by the state? Do you think that they've proven their case? In short, we got to go.
I think they've done a very good job.
All right, Jeffrey Wolf, thank you so much. Coming up next, Kelly Craft joins me on the desk for more of those crime scene photos in the in-law massacre sentencing case. This is Court TV Live.